The pre-launch trailer for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has been released, and Zelda theorists from all over the world have hit the internet with new speculations and ideas, and it is all very exciting. This trailer was jam-packed full of goodies and treats that Zelda fans were craving. Like you, I am officially now super hyped for this game, and I don't even think I blinked during my first viewing of the trailer. And then I rewatched it a dozen more times, each time picking up something new. So let's get into it. We'll start with the obvious things first, and then we'll move into speculation and theories of what we could expect. This video won't be an in-depth breakdown, because if we did that, we would be here until after the game was released. Instead, it will be an abridged version of my thoughts of what we can expect in the upcoming Zelda title. Let's take a look at the setting of Hyrule and the state it's in. The trailer opens with the camera flying through the sky, and we can see the Sky Islands once again, and it looks expansive. I can't wait to explore these islands. I heard someone call it Skyrule the other day, and I thought that was the perfect name for it, so I will be adopting that for this video. Straight up, we can see a soldier construct fighting a choo-choo and a ranger construct cutting down a tree, which could be part of the maintenance of the islands. It seems like these constructs are just sort of defending the Sky Islands of any intruders, no matter who they are. As people have noted from previous trailers, the coloring of these constructs is mostly green, which matches Link's arm, and it's not red or purple like the malice that controlled the Guardians in Breath of the Wild. So these constructs are most likely not affiliated with any villainous characters for the time being. Later on in the trailer, we see a giant construct emerge from a wall, and I am convinced that this is part of a Zonai trial, or maybe even a dungeon boss. Much like Godess, the boss from the Tower of the Gods in Wind Waker. Something else I noticed on the Sky Islands was the spiral stones. See, I previously thought that they were just situated on the surface of Hyrule, but apparently that's not the case. I'm still a little unsure of the function of these spiral stones, but if I were to take a guess, I would say that there's some sort of portal or transportation device, or maybe it signifies that the recall option can be used in that specific area. As awesome as it would be to skydive everywhere, having fast travel points scattered around Hyrule is pretty convenient, and that's what these spiral stones might be. They might be fast travel points. Or my other thought is that they are Zonai refill stations for this item that's hanging from Link's hip. Still a little unclear as to what this device could be, but a lot of people think it has something to do with Link's arm and his newly acquired abilities. Maybe it acts like a temporary power source for the small vehicles we can make, like that raft Eiji Onuma created during the recent gameplay reveal. Back down on the surface, we can see this giant ring-like structure atop Kakariko Village. Now, at first I wasn't sure if this was Kakariko Village, but after finding the location in Breath of the Wild, things became pretty clear. When I first saw this ring, I thought it was a gate or a paragliding challenge, but then I took another look and it looks like a fortified tower from a castle just on its side. It could be part of one of the Sky Islands, and it came crashing down to Hyrule and just landed here. Maybe if the recall ability can be upgraded, Link will have enough power to return it where it came from, and it could be the entrance to a dungeon or something. Or maybe it was Zelda's old study from Hyrule Castle, and Ganondorf just launched it in a fit of rage and it just barely missed Kakariko Village. This tower or ring, whatever it is, can be seen from a couple of different places across Hyrule. It can be seen from Whistling Hill and from Hyrule Castle Town. This spiral stone on Whistling Hill is where a shrine used to be in Breath of the Wild, so odds are that we'll find spiral stones at most of the old shrine locations if they haven't been taken into the sky. I just have a feeling that there's something important about this piece of tower, or about the Kakariko Village location in general. Maybe not a major plot point or anything, but significant enough to warrant a discussion. Maybe it's a way to teach players about the new game mechanics, or maybe it's part of a dungeon that we'll have to rebuild in order to complete it. Let me know in the comments what you think it could be, or if I'm out of my mind and just completely wrong. But speaking of Hyrule Castle Town, it seems like the people of Hyrule are really trying to recover from the damage caused by Calamity Ganon. There is a little encampment here, and there are no guardians or malice in sight, so some form of cleanup and rebuilding has begun. It would be nice to see Hyrule Castle Town return to its former glory. Imagine if it was like a Tarrey Town side quest and we could turn this little encampment into a bustling metropolis. That would be awesome. As the trailer continues, we see these new towers all over the place which weren't in Breath of the Wild, and there is also an abundance of these Zonai carvings all over the land and cliffsides. Some people are saying that these symbols are reminiscent of crop circles, but they kind of look like stamps or carvings to me. Now, this is a huge speculation, and I'm probably wrong when I say this, but these carvings and symbols look like the mark of giant slumbering beasts. Some of these symbols take the shape of a creature, and in Breath of the Wild we had the divine beasts, so in Tears of the Kingdom we may have to tame wild Zonai beasts, or even befriend Zonai dragons and gain their favor. Maybe we have already seen one of these creatures inside this thunderhead type cloud forming over the mountains near the Typhlo ruins. Or maybe these carvings and symbols are blueprints for designs of creatures, and we have to gather the resources in order to build them. In Breath of the Wild we had to grind to complete the 120 shrines, so maybe this is the new grind/fetch quest. We can add this to the list of things I need to find out as soon as possible. But I just mentioned the Typhlo ruins, and if we remember back to Breath of the Wild, the Typhlo ruins was covered in Zonai architecture, much like the other labyrinths we found. Maybe it could be the initial base of operations, or maybe it holds clues into finding the Zonai, or even finding the original passageway to the underground parts of Hyrule. Or it could be swarming with Hinoxes by now, which sounds like a deadly challenge. Hinox, I've always said Hinox, but my point is that the Typhlo ruins could hold some interesting information for the initial part of this game. Before we get into some really interesting reveals of the trailer, I want to talk about one more thing that I think is going to be so much fun. Going by what we see happening at Fort Hateno, it appears that we may be able to recruit some people to join our cause in the fight against Ganondorf and his minions. Check out these farmers. This looks like really basic weaponry at the moment, but imagine if we could train them and level them up and give them crazy awesome weapons and turn them into a full squadron of soldiers. And it doesn't just stop at Hylians. Check out this shot. We have Gorons next to Hylians next to a Gerudo. So maybe we can have different squadrons for different regions of the map. Like imagine having an aerial combat squadron of Rito that you can take into the sky. That would be sick. This trailer has given us so much already and my mind is in overdrive and I can't stop thinking about the release. Probably just like most of you. There are new armor sets that look incredible even for horses, and there could be potential game altering side quests. Like if you save some Hylians or relocate them safely, you might gain their trust a little more and they will be more willing to help us, and that could be the way we recruit more people into our squadron. So I think that takes care of the basic stuff we've seen so far. Now let's move into something a little more interesting. We will start with the desert. I remember fighting a Molduga in these parts in Breath of the Wild, and if I recall correctly, this area of the Gerudo Desert was called the Arbiter's Grounds, which is a very important detail. In the trailer, we can see a structure emerge from the sand, probably due to the powers of the upheaval, and it could be a revised version of the Arbiter's Grounds from Twilight Princess. For those who aren't familiar with Twilight Princess, the Arbiter's Grounds was the 4th dungeon of the game and was based in the desert. It was an ancient abandoned prison said to have held the worst criminals of Hyrule. The Arbiter's Grounds was to be the intended execution site of Ganondorf after his evil intent was brought to light in Ocarina of Time. However, that didn't really go according to plan, and in the process, Ganondorf killed the Sage of Water before he was sealed inside the Twilight Realm. Seeing as Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom apparently take place many generations after the events of Twilight Princess, it wouldn't be too far of a stretch to learn that the Arbiter's Grounds was buried beneath the shifting sands of the desert. I would not be surprised if we found some horrific, creepy things in this place. I'm looking at you, Gibdos and Redeads. Or maybe we'll see a new Death Sword. Imagine if we were able to defeat Death Sword and claim his weapon. That would be insane. Regardless, we can probably expect to see some horror elements return to The Legend of Zelda. So we've seen a structure rise from the sands in the desert. Hyrule Castle is rising into the sky due to the upheaval, and in the next shot we see a giant blood moon and a figure with long glowing red hair. This figure is surrounded by malice, and we can see what could be a horn protruding from their skull. This attire that they are wearing looks kind of like a skirt, and their left arm is very reminiscent of the scales of the imprisoned from Skyward Sword. To me, this person would have to be none other than Demise. Now, I know a lot of people would disagree with me, but I'm simply describing what I'm seeing. We know that Ganondorf is returning, and I have said in a previous video that villains have combined in the past, but I feel like having Demise as well as Ganondorf would be overkill. It'd be too much. I think we might be getting a Hyrulean history lesson. This appearance of Demise might simply just be a cameo of when someone is explaining the ancient history of Hyrule. Later in the trailer, we see this person. She is adorned with similar jewelry that Princess Zelda is wearing, and it seems that the tear on her necklace matches the tear that Zelda is holding in this shot. It could be that this person with this mystical power was the goddess Hylia. In previous trailers, you can see this white-garbed figure with this fabric on the front of their dress. I originally thought that this was going to be some sort of scabbard to help restore the Master Sword, but after looking at it again, I admit, I was wrong. In this shot, you can see the intricate fabric begins at the top part of her dress. The skin tone is obviously different between these two characters, but perhaps Zelda has simply donned the garment of this person, as she may have just inherited it in order to fulfill her role as the goddess reborn. She has taken on the jewelry as well as some of the teardrop markings on her face, and as we all know, the blood of the goddess runs through Zelda's veins. But I think that's all it will be. I think we will be told an ancient Zonai legend that will reveal more about the war between Demise and his demons and Hylia and her people in an era long before the events of Skyward Sword. With that massive speculation out of the way, let's bring it back to something a little easier to digest. Check out these awesome underground cities. These structures look like they could be under Goron City or potentially within Death Mountain itself. On these rail carts, we can see the Goron symbol, so that seems pretty obvious, and we witness Link wearing the famed Flamebreaker armor set. which is worn on Death Mountain in order to repel the heat of the volcano. On the opposite end of that, we are introduced to some new flying ships in the sky that look to be near the cylindrical storm cloud we saw earlier near Typhlo ruins. If we take a close look at the design of these ships, we can see that there's a bird's head on the bow. It could be that some people of Hyrule have managed to develop a flying machine capable of withstanding the strong winds of a storm. I think these flying ships are a Rito invention. Who would know the skies better than the Rito? Towards the beginning of this trailer, Link dives past a sky island with a gate and what could be a potential dock for the flying ships. This could be the way of bringing people up to the Sky Islands. We can see Link wearing the Snowquill armor set, and then in this shot we see him with a young Rito warrior flying into the storm. It has been revealed that this young Rito warrior is Tulin, who is Tabor's son from Breath of the Wild. We met him in Rito Village a long time ago when he was barely a hatchling. I am so excited to traverse the skies in this game. It looks like there is heaps to do. There are floating water challenges, a skydiving wingsuit laser challenge, and look at this puzzle. It almost looks like a planetarium, and you'll have to redirect the sunlight in order to solve the puzzle. When Breath of the Wild was first released, everyone was so excited to have this huge open world map, but it seemed a little bit empty and it wasn't as dense as I wanted it to be. It seems like Nintendo has addressed this with Tears of the Kingdom, and now we are spoiled for choice. There is so much going on in this trailer. It was hard to keep up when I first watched it, and I was absolutely stunned when we were introduced to this creature. I feel like we've been introduced to this person in an earlier trailer, although in a very different format. Let's do a comparative analysis. In an earlier trailer, we can see this hieroglyph, for lack of a better term, depicting a figure that is similar to this person here. Long parts of the hair with tassels hanging down from it, markings under the eyes, and a matching necklace. Is this what a Zonai looks like? Is this the leader of the Zonai? They look so awesome and so deadly, but are they friend or foe? We can see small flecks of malice surrounding this figure, but perhaps that is due to where they are. This could be a flashback to the original sealing of Calamity Ganon. It does seem like this person has been in a physical struggle. Maybe they were fighting against the original Calamity Ganon and gained the upper hand. Only time will tell. A few moments later, we see Zelda speaking with this person. They place their hand on Zelda's shoulder and we can see that it matches Link's Zonai arm. This adornment they are wearing also matches the necklace worn by this person in the previous shot. So it would seem that this creature is a Zonai. But Nintendo is so good at keeping things close to the vest that it's difficult to know what is correct, and it's hard to make any sort of definitive statement. All we can do is try our best to make a guess as to what to expect. One thing I think we can expect from Tears of the Kingdom is memories and flashbacks. I want to take a look at the shot of the Master Sword from the trailer. Here we can see it is fully intact, which is not the case in previous trailers for Tears of the Kingdom. The camera pans up and we see Koroks looking on as a hand appears in the frame and grasps the hilt of the Master Sword. If it is Link's hand, it is clear that it takes place before he gains his Zonai arm and the Master Sword is broken. Perhaps Link put the Master Sword back into its pedestal after he defeated Calamity Ganon and some semblance of peace had returned to Hyrule, and he may have felt like he no longer needed it. And so he returned it to the pedestal the same way previous heroes have from earlier titles in the series. And as a new threat dawns, Link returns to the Korok Forest to reclaim the Master Sword once more in order to banish the evil that is looming. That evil being Ganondorf. This reanimated corpse of Ganondorf shoots a beam of red malice into the sky and creates what looks to be some sort of portal. A series of bokoblins, moblins, and Lynels are revealed and they look more intense than ever. I am definitely scared to come across my first Lynel in Tears of the Kingdom. We see Link struggling against the malice that encompasses his arm and the Master Sword, and we finally see the revived King of Evil. The dude has obviously been hitting the gym. We haven't seen Ganondorf in his Gerudo form since Twilight Princess, which was originally released 17 years ago. Unless you count Hyrule Warriors, which I don't. But that's all we really see of Ganondorf before we are slammed with a series of shots showing us giant monsters, combat scenes, and new characters and their abilities. Going back to the figure with the tear on her necklace, the trailer makes it look like she wields some serious power. She holds her hand up in a similar way to Zelda when Zelda uses her sacred power. The following shot after that, we see a giant beam of light shooting down from the sky, taking out these Moldugas in the sands of the Gerudo Desert. That is some goddess type move right there. Maybe that's the reason for the carvings all over the land of Hyrule. She could be burning a message into the ground from the heavens. We then see Riju summon down lightning, much like Urbosa was able to do in Breath of the Wild. A few moments later, we see Prince Sidon of the Zoras fighting alongside Link on a sky island, which is amazing. So maybe my idea of taking people up to the Sky Islands isn't so far-fetched. The next shot, we see the three warriors moving into battle, and if we look closely, we can clearly see that two of these warriors have tears of their own. Sidon has a blue tear on the back of his hand, and we can see Tulin has a green and yellow tear fastened to his leg or ankle. We saw Riju with a tear in the previous shot with the lightning. So I want to make another prediction, and I'm pretty sure everyone has come to the same conclusion, but I think that these warriors are the new generation of champions. Although there are only 3 of the Hyrulean races seen fighting here, the Zonai could potentially have 7 tiers to give out to those who are worthy. In this earlier trailer, we can see 7 of these symbols surrounding this figure, which I assume to be a Zonai protector of the tiers. And another thing most of us have noticed about these tiers is that they are different colors. Zelda has a yellow one, Sidon has a blue one, and Tulin has a green one. Maybe these tiers house an immense elemental power relative to its holder. Or maybe these tiers represent the sacred power of the ancient sages, of which there were 7. In the past, it has taken the power of the 7 sages to seal Ganon, so maybe that's what we need to do again. And maybe through the sages, the full power of the Master Sword is returned. But in contradiction to that, in the recent official artwork that we've seen of Ganondorf, we can see that there is a tear in the center of his head. Maybe this tear bolsters his already immense power. So maybe it isn't about sages at all, or maybe Ganondorf has killed a sage and taken the tear for himself. Nearing the end of the trailer, we see Link running towards the Gleeok as it takes flight. The bosses we've seen so far look incredible, and I am so excited, if not a little bit scared, to fight them. Let me know which boss you are most excited to come up against, aside from Ganondorf, of course. One last thing we see before the ending title screen is Zelda holding the Master Sword, and the camera is positioned so perfectly that we can't see the state that it's in. We don't know if it is still damaged at this point and Zelda is just examining it, or maybe she is giving it her blessing the same way Zelda from Skyward Sword did many eons ago. I know I've probably missed a bunch of obvious things. I just wanted to make a really simple breakdown video and come up with some predictions and theories for Tears of the Kingdom, because it is just so much fun to come up with speculations about my favorite video game and chat to people who have the same amount of passion for it as I do. Finally, the trailer cuts to another stone wall carving depicting what looks like Ganondorf standing behind his minions as they go to war. The title screen fades to black and we see Princess Zelda a final time, who says,
"Link, you must find me."
The hero is called upon once again and is unwavering in the face of the dangers that lie ahead. Link has and always will answer the call to help those who need it without a second thought, because courage need not be remembered, for it is never forgotten.